Hey everybody, this is Walt,
This is Max.
and you are listening to our podcast on dystopian films. We are Useless Info Inc.
And today, Walt, we're going on a bug hunt. Because this is 1997 Starship Troopers, directed by Paul Verhoeven. And we are going to dissect this thing. We're going to open it up until Denise Richards does a fake vomit. Because that is a thing that happens, right?
I like how you said dissect. It's kind of fits in. Insect?
Exactly.
Dissect?
Yes. Anything else you want to say in intro to this movie?
No, not really. It's just a fun film. It's got a lot of socio-political, militaristic commentary going on.
Yeah.
But also partially in satire.
Yes. All right, so let's jump into this thing. It opens with a scene from the Nazi propaganda film Triumph of the Will. As Paul Verhoeven has himself stated, the opening scene is a shot-by-shot remake of a scene from a Nazi propaganda film. Now, Walt, I might be a little bit confused here, but why would a director who spent his childhood in German-occupied Holland and someone who saw atrocities committed by the Nazis, why would he directly reference a Nazi propaganda film?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's no stronger propaganda out there than what the Nazis were doing in Germany at the time. It was very almost brainwashing.
Yes.
What they were doing with their serials and the reels and things like this to get men into the German military, into the Nazis.
Yes.
So basically, it was almost like a form of brainwashing, in my opinion. And it fits in well with the theme of this film, since the only way you can become a legitimate citizen is to join the military.
Yes.
You have to join the military in order to become a citizen, to have certain rights, to do anything from start your own business to have a baby.
Yeah, exactly.
To have a child.
Or be a politician or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And he also explicitly says that he referenced the Why We Fight series of newsreels produced by the U.S. in World War II. These were essentially little reels that were designed to kind of drum up civilian support for the war effort against Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan.
That they would show before big films in
Exactly,
cinemas.
exactly, yes.
You get your cartoon, you get a serial reel, and then you get your feature.
You get Why We Fight, a bit of that. Now, my feeling is that Paul Verhoeven, he didn't do that in order to criticize that war or the reasons to be in it. I would imagine and hope that Paul Verhoeven understood quite clearly that the only reason he was able to grow up in the progressive Netherlands rather than a Nazi-occupied Netherlands was because of the war effort spearheaded by the U.S. and its industrial might and manpower. I think he gets that, but I think there are other reasons why he might reference U.S. propaganda films as well as Nazi propaganda films. And one of the things that he has explicitly stated is that one of his points in this movie is that war makes fascists of us all.
Powerful.
Yes, even if you are fighting a greater fascist power, his kind of idea is that it still kind of makes you a fascist. Now, we're not going to examine the validity of that as a philosophical position.
It's too heavy.
It's too heavy. Yeah, that's going to be for my "Does War Make Fascists of Us All?" podcast. But I think it is really worth examining this movie in detail and kind of sussing out how this film makes that claim, how it may succeed or fail making that claim.
Okay.
So that's a lot of heavy politics. The next scene is awesome because a bug attacks, right?
Right.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
The first bugs we see are these giant, they're called arachnoids, I believe, or arachnids. Arachnids in the film.
Yeah.
And they're almost, they look like giant spiders / crustacean creatures that are humongous.
Yeah.
Almost faceless, just all giant spiky arms.
Yeah.
Like they evolved into these killing machines is what these warriors are. They're kind of like the drones for the hive. They just go out and kill.
Like the warrior cast.
Right.
If you've got like that kind of hive set up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so like the xenomorphs in Alien. You have the warrior ones, and then you have the queen, and so they're kind of sent out to just destroy anything that tries to populate the planet, or they're sent out to wipe out other species on other planets.
Yeah.
So, first time I saw them, and the CGI still holds up to me to this day. I was like, wow, that's a cool-looking original type of creature that you've never seen before. Yeah. Like I said, faceless almost.
Mm-hmm.
Just doesn't have normal sensory 5 senses. It just kind of goes on instinct.
Yeah. And when's the first time we see the first arachnid in the movie?
It's a scene that they pick up on later. They kind of jump forward a little bit where they...
But it shows up like 5 minutes in, right? It's right there.
It's with the news crew filming how they're attacking...
Yeah.
Yeah, they're attacking Clondalfo, trying to bring the war to the bugs because they're sending out asteroids that are covered in these seeds or what have you, that when they land, they turn into these arachnids and take over and try to wipe out the population of wherever they wind up landing.
Yeah. Which was interesting, I thought, because usually in these kinds of movies, when you're doing kind of creature or monster movie, you might have an attack right in the beginning, but you kind of save the reveal of the creature till later in the movie.
So much later. So maybe Act 2.
Yeah, they just went for it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of wondering why that is, but I'm wondering if it's just like they don't really care. Like, whatever, this is the creature.
Right.
Like that's maybe not the point of the movie.
Right.
Right?
Right. No, I'll go with that. With that. It could be a little of both now that I think of it. It could, to draw you in right away. We'll give you a look at what they're fighting, what they're actually fighting.
That thing is like ripping soldiers apart.
Yeah.
Which is...
And they were stunned.
Really awesome. Yeah,
they go in there all gung-ho and like, kill them all, and then they're getting wiped out. They're getting their asses handed to them.
Yeah. No, it's a cool opening. And then they kind of flash back a year, and then we're in high school, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Where we see our main characters.
We meet Casper Van Dien playing Johnny Rico. We've got Denise Richards as Carmen Ibanez. We've got Dina Meyer as Dizzy Flores, right?
Dizzy Flores.
Yeah, those are the main people. And here we get, so the teacher here, Michael Ironside, he's kind of espousing the philosophies of this society. And he kind of traces how things went down. He says that there was a failure of democracy and the veterans took control in kind of a military uprising. And they established a society in which the only way you could become a citizen with full voting rights is to serve in the military.
In the military.
Right? Now, this scene, I've read the novel by Robert Heinlein. This scene basically comes directly from the novel. And the philosophies presented are directly from the novel as well.
Well, what I read, there's only really a couple of scenes that are taken directly from, right?
Not that much.
Right.
Actually, when it comes right down to it. More kind of broader story shape in certain ways. And the characters are there, but they're very different. Yeah.
Well, I did read that, because I haven't read the novel, that originally Johnny Rico, our main character in this film, was Filipino in the book.
Yeah, Juan Rico. Yeah.
And it's funny that you have these Caucasian Americans with these ethnic names in this.
Yeah.
Johnny Rico.
Carmen Ibanez.
Right, Carmen Ibanez, yeah.
And Dizzy Flores.
Right, Flores, yeah.
Yeah.
And they all live in...
Buenos Aires.
Yep, Buenos Aires, yeah.
And, I mean, it's not like you expect to see people tangoing everywhere, but there's nothing you see that would identify this as Buenos Aires, except for, like, it says it's Buenos Aires.
Right.
Right? I mean, there
seems to be no ethnicity.
There's no signs in Spanish.
Right.
Or no one speaking Spanish.
Right.
And I'm wondering if that's a way of stating that in this future, just American culture, like English only, has taken over the whole world.
Taken over the world, right? Yeah.
Like,
you get that sense.
Everything's just sort of the same kind of, culture.
Yeah.
Anglo-American.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so we're in high school, and the same scene occurs in the novel, but in the novel, the way I take it, the way most people take it, is that this is not only the society's philosophy, but it is Robert A. Heinlein's philosophy as well. That he actually believed these things. But in the movie, the way I take it is that this is the philosophy of the society, but not the position of the film and the filmmakers.
Right. Right.
Now, what I wonder when I'm watching is, why do I think that? why am I making that nuance there? You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I think it's because in the novel, these ideas are presented completely without irony. They're just like
Right.
out there. Whereas in here, there's something weird about the way they act. Right?
It's a little tongue in cheek. It's a little satirical.
It's a little over the top.
Yeah. A little ham-fisted. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think deliberately so.
Yeah.
I think he chose these actors and he had them act in a certain way to kind of maybe distance us.
Right.
You know, like the way I think about it is if the actors are really on point in a movie, you get so involved with them and their journeys that you kind of forget you're watching a movie, right?
You
you're
forget
just
the
so
overall
involved.
picture.
Exactly.
Film,
Yeah, you're
right?
just
The whole
there.
overall
You're just with them. In this, because they're so just kind of odd, you can never really get into the movie in a way. You're always at a certain remove.
Mm-hmm.
So you're aware that you're watching a movie in a way, which is a thing that happens with bad movies, which is why you can do the Mystery Science Theater thing with them.
Right.
Right? You've got the remove,
So
you
bad
laugh
it's
at
good.
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think that is deliberate so that you kind of step back and you're in a position where you can critique what's going on in the movie and,
Right.
and the ideas.
Right.
Does that seem... I haven't encountered anything where Paul Verhoeven has stated that is what he intended. So it's my theory, and of course it's crackpot because it's my theory. But what do you think about it? You think it?
No, I agree with what you're saying. Since you made that point, I think maybe also that they are acting this way because they are a product of this society.
Okay.
You know, maybe it is a little intentional that they're so rigid or stiff or removed from certain aspects of what's happening around them.
Okay.
Now, if you see this type of war going on, and they must have seen, different footage before they got to Clendathu of what they were actually facing, why would you want to sign up for something like this?
Yeah.
Instead of just, we're going to get out there and we're just going to kill, and we're going to become citizens and be able to do all this. You'd have to be of a certain mindset to be that crazy, to really drop everything and go into this kind of space war.
And you see Michael Ironside, who's got half of an arm.
Yeah.
In fact, he rests his stub.
Right. To make it a point.
There's no way you can get out of that.
Then there's that other scene when they're actually at the recruiting office.
Yeah.
And the guy behind the counter, behind the desk, wheels out because Rico's going into the mobile infantry.
Yeah.
And he says, "Mobile infantry made me the man I am today." And he's got a robot arm and no legs.
Yeah.
And he looks at him for a second. And I think that's the only real moment you have with Rico where he goes, "What am I doing here?"
And he signs up anyway.
Yeah, he signs up anyhow.
So we're suggesting that basically they're so kind of cookie cutter because of the way they've been stamped out by the society that they're just going to play the game. That's part of the intention of how the actors present the characters.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
I hear it. Yeah.
I'll go with that.
I'm seeing that.
I mean, but it could play both ways, and that's it. That's why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Why we wanted to discuss this film. It does leave it open to a little bit of interpretation for the audience.
Okay.
Which I think is a great sign of, especially a science fiction film.
Okay.
If you're going to make some sort of statement, let the audience think about it. What does it mean to you?
So what do you think would be other ways to interpret it?
Well, they could have gone the exact opposite. Like you had mentioned the way the book is, the way the novel is, where it's very dark, very depressing. If they made that film, I don't think it would have been as successful as it is. And it was critically panned when it came out. Because of some of the points that you started making about the acting and about the way it's filmed. And what is he saying here? Why is it so militaristic and fascist?
Yeah, I think, well, it was depressing for me, Paul Verhoeven, to read
the book.
But a lot of people love that book. It's like recommended reading at West Point.
Wow.
There's a whole school of thought that suggests that this is a good replacement for Sun Tzu's The Art of War.
Really?
Yeah,
that's a bold statement.
I think that my reaction is kind of specific to how I am as in kind of, non-militaristic.
Yeah.
I think that if they had made the movie straight, well, for one thing, Paul Verhoeven would have never done it. John Milius, on the other hand,
might have jumped at it.
He's the kind of guy who would have done it completely straight. But I think it would have had a very different fan base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because this has both your B-movie science fiction fans and fans of a science fiction, so to speak,
Yeah.
as big fans of the film. That, you know, we all agree on it. That it's a great. It became, you know, cult classic, so to speak.
Yeah.
But whenever you talk to a real fan of genre films like this, everybody says, "Oh yeah, Starship Troopers. That was great." I've never run across somebody that said, "I don't like that movie."
And what do they say about it?
They just, number one, what people wind up seeing first is the action.
Okay.
The action and the fact that it's taking place in outer space against these giant insect creatures. Mm-hmm. Other people that have delved a little deeper start to get some of the themes that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Militaristic society, fascism aspect, the closeness to Nazi Germany with the wardrobe.
Yeah.
You know, some people have picked up on that. I mean, the first time I saw that, when I watched the film initially, I said, whoa, basically Nazis.
You're not talking about Neil Patrick Harris in a Gestapo trench coat, are you?
Oh, yes, I am. And even they're dressed down.
Yeah.
They're like what were they called? The black coats? Mussolini's black coats?
Oh, the black shirts, yeah.
Black shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very close to that.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Yeah,
know?
I think the costume design is very deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting what you're saying. Verhoeven has stated that he wanted to have his cake and eat it too, which I think is exactly what you're saying, which is that he wanted to critique action cinema and the kind of, you know, underlying fascism in certain types of movies.
Especially war films.
But at the same time, he wanted to make a kick-ass action film.
Right.
Which I think kind of is. But I sometimes wonder if those two things create an unresolvable tension. I mean, I think I resolve it within myself, but I'm not even sure how sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think maybe it's because we enjoy the film that you're able to say, it works for me.
Yeah.
It works. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see what you mean. There could be that push and pull for someone else that's watching it in a different way. Mm-hmm. You know, us being fans of the genre, we're willing to kind of accept or suspend, willing to accept what it is or suspend disbelief on the other hand, and just, you know, enjoy it and go, oh, I think he was going for this. Mm-hmm. And once again, that goes back to, you make up your own mind about it. I don't have to answer every question for you making a film. You know, have fun with it.
Exactly.
Think for yourself about it.
Yeah. Okay, so we got the high school scene. We get biology class for some reason. Denise Richards vomits, which I always kind of love.
When they're dissecting the giant little flea alien.
Yeah. No, why is that scene there?
Just for gross factor and for special effects.
Probably, right?
But it's fun.
Yeah, because like nothing actually happens except Rue McClanahan is blind.
Right. She's got robotic implants or something.
Yeah.
Which, in this future, everybody that goes out to war and winds up getting hurt somewhere, losing an arm or eyes, they get robot stuff.
Yeah.
They get, you know, cyborg parts.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cool... If I have to lose... yeah, okay. Bionic man me. I'll take a robot arm if I lost my arm.
But it does sort of emphasize that idea that all these adults, they're like scarred and wounded from the war.
Just to become citizens, to be a teacher.
Yeah, and these kids don't seem to notice.
Right.
You know,
it's just
like,
part of the
whatever.
part of their world.
Okay, so then Neil Patrick Harris has psychic powers. What is that? Okay, that's not from the novel.
Right.
I'll tell you that much. I never quite got that detail. It's like this throwback to 50s and 60s sci-fi.
Yeah.
When they actually thought that psychic powers were a thing and science would figure out how.
Right.
And I mean like smart sci-fi authors like Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov were writing this stuff into there, but it just feels like retrograde. I don't and it doesn't really. I don't know what it serves in here. Like, what do you think it's here for?
I enjoy that factor simply because of what you said. It is a throwback to older science fiction, you know, Atomic Age, et cetera, science fiction films. Also, I guess he's trying to show that man has evolved to a certain extent.
Okay.
Where now psychic abilities are almost commonplace. And especially people with psychic abilities are wanted for the military to try and hunt down the enemy. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe that's why he put it in there. So you can have Neil Patrick Harris's character being a higher up searching for, there's supposedly a smart bug out there somewhere. Yeah. And that's basically what he's in the military for, to find the leader of the hive, the queen bee, so to speak.
Yeah, okay, all right. And then we get future football.
Mm-hmm.
And so Johnny likes Carmen, but Xander Barclow? Xander Barclow. Xander Barclow kind of likes Carmen, and what is all this high school soap opera stuff? I mean, I can understand having like a little bit of it, but there's a lot of it in this movie.
A lot of love triangle stuff.
What do you think it's here for?
I think shows that were out at the time were popular soap opera type shows like 90210 and whatever the hell, Melrose Place and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing the initial commercials for this movie and thinking I didn't want to see it because it looked like 90210 in space to me. They didn't really sell the movie properly for me.
Mm-hmm. You didn't see the ad where they played the Blur song?
No, I don't remember that one.
You remember the Blur song?
Oh, the woo-hoo? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember that one.
That's the only ad that I saw.
Really?
And it had all these guys like attacking giant bugs with.
See, I never saw that.
And yeah, I mean, it didn't correctly represent the movie because
Right.
it didn't reveal that it was a satire.
Right,
But
right.
it was definitely geared towards people who want to see badass sci-fi.
Really?
Yeah.
Nope, I missed that.
You saw the one that was made for teenage girls.
For young girls.
Yeah. Was this around Valentine's Day that this one came?
Was it?
Because around Valentine's Day, every single movie gets sold as a date movie.
As a date movie,
right?
yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what's going on.
Right.
Like, the one love scene, the two love scenes will be cut together to make it look like the whole thing's a love movie. Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right. See, I kept thinking when I was seeing the ads, okay, you got all these pretty soldiers running around.
Yeah.
Pretty guys, pretty girls. Really, what's that movie going to be like?
Yeah.
Now when I see it, I know why he did this, why he wanted to cast attractive people in these main roles, as these young Turks going out into the military and fighting bugs, fighting these giant creatures that are exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
These grotesque-looking insect creatures.
Do you think we're supposed to care about any of the romantic entanglements? I don't mean you and I literally, but
I kind of care
I mean,
a little.
People who might be into that kind of thing.
I kind of care a little for them. See, that's a big side note.
I
me.
don't think so.
But I think it's kind of a way for him to humanize them a little, especially
But
with.
does it really?
Right.
I don't know if it actually does because again, the way it's played,
Right.
it's so like just rote and like all the romantic entanglements. They don't feel like they come from actual human motivations. They just feel like they've been scripted.
Okay.
Which again goes back to the thing I was talking about before. I mean, is it just that is the kind of thing that happens in these kinds of movies? He was kind of he was making a recruiting film, right?
Right.
Like, imagine you lived in this world and they made a recruiting film to like sell the whole society and the war and everything.
Right.
That's how this film might look like.
Right.
And they just kind of throw that romantic stuff in there because that's a part of what happens in those movies. Like I imagine the Nazi propaganda films, it was all like, Hans was in love with Greta and then he's got to go off to war and like,
Right.
Right.
Okay, I get that. I get that.
I don't know. I'm not sure
Right.
because I haven't read anything that and I listened to the commentaries. I don't think he ever really explicitly mentioned like what his purpose was.
Right.
Yeah.
It could be one of those things too where, say, the studio that was involved said, well, you got to give us something here. We got to...
Maybe. Yeah.
You got to have some love scene or something, or there's got to be some sort of romantic thing happening between some of the characters.
Yeah, maybe.
And I think the only character that I felt for a little bit was Flores, because she was so after Johnny Rico.
Oh yeah.
And then finally, when she does, she's happy as a clam. You
Yeah.
know? She finally got what she wanted. She got to be with him.
Yeah.
She's the only one you feel for.
Yeah.
She's the only one that kind of has a little bit of an arc in the romantic love triangle thing that's happening. It's actually like 4 people, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a quadrangle.
Quadrangle.
Right? Yeah. But I do think it's cool that when they're playing future football, it's like mixed gender team, like Disney's on the team.
Right.
And that's an interesting thing. Like, it might be a fascist society, but it's pretty there's gender equality there.
Right, equality, yeah.
Like, Carmen she's better at math, so she gets to fly a Starship.
Right.
Whereas Johnny's just going to be an infantry
grunt,
guy.
yeah.
But Dizzy's a grunt as well.
Right.
And it also seems pretty racially equal. It doesn't seem like any sort of racial animus is part of this fascist culture.
Right.
Which, that's okay. That's something to be said for this dystopian future, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's one good point.
Yeah.
Besides losing your arm to a giant bug.
Exactly. Okay, so Johnny's father says, I'd rather take 10 lashes in a public square than see you ruin your life.
A little foreshadowing.
Now, okay, so when he said that, I thought it's like a thing you say, like, I'd rather be boiled in oil.
Yeah, right. Right,
But-
you don't really mean it.
But then we find out, like you said, it's a thing that happens.
It does, yeah. It's
you
corporal
actually
punishment.
can get 10 lashes in a public
Yeah.
square, right?
Yeah.
Because fascism, anyone?
Right?
And then it's prom night because of course,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And I just have to say that this is how we know how far in the future it is, because bad 90s music is cool again.
Right. I was going to say, you're hard-pressed in a science fiction movie
Yeah.
when it's future music that it's any good. It's always
Yeah.
some weird thing you can't listen to.
Yeah.
And like you said, bad 90s music. Yeah, I guess it was all retro again, you know, the way
It just comes
the
around.
way the 80s
Yeah.
are happening now for younger people.
Exactly,
You know?
yeah.
Everybody loves the 80s now again, you know.
And that's Zoe Polidorus.
Yeah, right. That's
Yeah.
right.
But then the second song she does is actually a Bowie tune.
Oh, I don't remember that.
It's a Bowie tune.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, from his 1995 Outside album.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a bad tune. But they changed the lyrics, so that instead of saying 20th century dies, she says 23rd century dies.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I never paid close enough attention to that.
When you listen to the isolated soundtrack, which you can on the DVD,
Yeah.
that's a thing that you
Okay.
pick out. And so then we get more of the quadrangle thing. Johnny disses Dizzy, right?
Yeah.
It's a diss.
Yeah.
Classic diss. And then Neil Patrick Harris kind of sidles in doing his
Creepy.
best sexual predator impersonation.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
it's so creepy.
Yeah.
And he's got like his tongue sticking out of his mouth and everything. And
Yeah.
it's like, dude.
It was, yeah,
But she goes with it because they're friends, and you know.
like whatever. Yeah.
But he's looking at her like, if you don't want you, I'll move in.
Yeah. And then Johnny signs up because Carmen's willing to give him some. I mean,
Yeah,
it says it pretty plainly, right?
yeah, yeah,
He's like, I think I want to join up. Oh, well, my parents are gone tonight.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, that's one thing that'll get him to go fight.
And Dizzy does say it later
Yeah.
when everybody's talking about why'd you join up in his squad.
Yeah.
And she kind of outs him
Yeah.
and says he joined up because of a girl.
Yeah, exactly.
Other people are saying, you know, I want to have babies, I want to be a politician, I want to be a doctor, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
You know, and she outs him by saying he joined up just because he liked the girl that joined.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, by the same token, she kind of followed him, I think, a little bit into
exactly.
the mobile infantry.
And she requests transfer to his unit,
Yeah.
doesn't she?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right. Then you have that great scene with her and Clancy Brown where they fight.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That great little fight scene.
Okay, first, want to get to another thing because we get another broadcast from Fox News. I'm sorry. What is it? The Federal Network? Or
The
whatever?
Federal Network.
Yeah, but sometimes I can't tell the difference. Anyway, you see these kids playing with rifles because, of course,
Right.
you see a murder has been tried and killed in the span of a day, a public execution, right?
Right.
And then you find out that Mormon extremists have kind of encroached on and colonized arachnid territory,
Right.
right?
Right. To try and somehow convert the arachnids.
Yeah, what is
You just got to get those bugs religion. That's all. They'll be, and then we'll all be friends. It'll be great. You know.
Yeah, I think that just
Right.
that just stands on its own.
Then you have that one wild scene too, where they have water bugs running around. They have the little kids smashing them, stepping all over them.
That scene, I think, says it all.
Yeah.
Quite honestly,
And you got the mother cackling
she's
wildly.
like a psychopath.
Yeah.
Okay, for one thing, I don't know how you can watch that scene and not realize that this is all satire.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause
Right.
It's so overblown.
Yep.
But also, that kind of stands in for all these sorts of symbolic things that like civilians do in wartime
Right.
to act like they're in support of the war effort, even though they're not sacrificing anything, not doing anything.
Right.
The best example I can think of is freedom fries. You know, it's
God, I forgot all about that.
purely symbolic.
Yeah.
It's like this is how I support the troops.
Right.
I renamed my French fries.
To freedom fries.
Yeah, and
Got
that,
red, white, and blue ketchup.
that makes me a true patriot.
Right.
You know, it's the same sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'll go with that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
And where it used to be war bonds.
Yeah.
You know.
At least you're spending some money.
Right.
In that case, you know, and yeah, and during World
So
War
troops
II,
could get helmets and.
yeah,
You know.
I mean, people were volunteering. They were they were driving much less.
Right,
They
yeah.
were actually rationing.
Yeah.
I mean, they actually had to make sacrifices back then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now we're not asked to do anything more, for one thing,
Right.
except pay more in taxes. But
Or you can donate
yeah, you can donate.
to like Wounded Warrior.
Yeah,
Sure. I mean, I
Something
think
like
that's
that.
a good because if you really want to support the troops, especially when they come home.
Yeah,
But yeah, like you said, we're not asked
but
to
that's
do
when people
much
forget
at all.
about them.
Yeah, right.
It's all during the war that
Yeah.
we're supposed to support them. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I remember when Desert Storm was happening and they were talking about the draft.
yeah,
I was frightened. I was scared out of my wits.
yeah. Did you
Yeah.
really think it would come back?
They were saying there was a strong possibility
Wow.
for a while there. And a friend of mine was in the Marines and he was over there.
Yeah,
And I would get letters from him back when people wrote letters
Yeah.
and put them in the mail. This is before cell phones and all this, and emails really took off.
yeah.
And it was just horror story after horror story.
Oh god.
So that put the fear in me.
This is Desert Storm, the first one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And of course, that war was supposed to be all sanitized and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, it was supposed to be all clean and
yeah.
yeah. Wow.
The opposite.
Okay, so back to the basic training scene you're talking about. So we've seen numerous examples of these kinds of sequences in films, but I have to ask you, is this guy the most sadistic drill sergeant ever depicted on film?
Clancy Brown.
Because
Excuse me, yes, Clancy Brown.
Because that's... Yeah.
Medic!
Because if not, I mean, he breaks a guy's arm for him.
Yeah.
He sticks a knife through a guy's hand.
Almost breaks Dizzy's neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Jake Busey, where they're doing knife throwing exercises, is
Yeah.
what you're talking about, that
Yeah.
scene. And Jake Busey is just not excelling at knife throwing at all. So he gets frustrated, and he says to Clancy Brown, I don't understand why we need to know how to throw a knife in a nuke fight. He says, soldier, put your hand on that wall. And then he puts the knife right through his hand,
Yeah.
long distance knife throw. And then he explains to the troops, the enemy cannot push a button if you disable his hand. Which is great. And like you said, it's almost like he's enjoying this.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't seen combat for a while either, and he wants to be a grunt, and he's really trying to make them into what he sees mobile infantry should be.
Yeah.
So he's being a real hard ass.
Yeah.
I mean, unmercifully.
Yeah.
Unmercifully.
Yeah.
But he's another great actor. I love him in everything that he's in.
Okay.
Clancy Brown. He was in Highlander. He played the Kurgan in Highlander. He was in Pet Sematary 2. Not a great movie, but he's great in it. So...
Okay, so then we come to the co-ed shower scene. I just have to read one quote from Paul Verhoeven. The idea I wanted to express was that these so-called advanced people are without libido. Here they are talking about war and their careers and not looking at each other at all. It is sublimated because they are fascists.
Wow.
Just one piece of advice. If anybody ever wants to get really drunk, watch the commentary tracks to this movie, both of them with Paul Verhoeven, and take a good drink every time Paul Verhoeven says the word fascist, because it is numerous. Everything
Really?
is like, yeah, and he says it in his great Dutch accent, which I'm not going to attempt. But he's just like, yeah, and this is where Johnny, he's not so much of a fascist, but you can see him being a little bit of a fascist here, and he'll be more of a fascist later on. It just
He's fascist.
Yeah, this is why he made this movie. It becomes very clear.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, go on and talk about the shower scene.
Like we had touched on earlier, this is where, one by one, they reveal why they went into the military. They went into the infantry.
Yeah.
All legitimate reasons on most people's parts. Like I said earlier, everything from I want to be a politician to opening my own business to having babies.
Yeah.
And once again, Rico's outed by Flores because he joined because of Carmen. He joined because of a girl.
Yeah.
He's just following her because he's thinking they're going to be together forever. Mm-hmm. He's got this real romanticized idea about her where she doesn't feel the same way.
Yeah.
And as soon as they get into the military, her priorities change instantly.
Yeah.
Where he's still kind of chasing after her a little bit, but her priorities change like on a dime.
Yeah. Once
she becomes, she's learning how to be a pilot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the next scene, right?
Right. And then Xander is reintroduced.
Xander. Yeah. He's the guy with messy hair.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, he had the cool hair back then. You know, it's
Yeah,
kind of, you gel it and just throw it around. Oh, I'm cool because I don't
Exactly,
really
yeah.
care about my hair.
So let me ask you this: in that whole scene with Xander and Carmen, are they just talking about sex?
Basically, it's
Because
all innuendo.
he says, "I hear you're a little wild on the stick."
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like, oh, I got to remember that's a good come on line.
Yeah.
What the hell?
okay, just want to be clear on that.
No, it's all innuendo.
Yeah, yeah. And then, so she sends Johnny a Dear Johnny CD. Right?
A CD. Yeah.
And we were talking
Dear
about
John letter.
the last movie, which was made in 1981 but took place in 1997. We were talking about how they couldn't see CDs coming and like everything was recorded on
Right.
cassette tapes.
Right.
Here they don't seem to realize that Skype is coming because they're recording video, but they're sending these little CDs through the mail.
The little minis, the little mini
exactly.
discs
Yeah.
through the mail.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they can't just energize them onto the ship at this point.
Yeah, totally. All right, so
I got 4 CDs to beam up.
so Johnny gets flogged.
Yeah.
All right. And then, meanwhile, in space, that's when the asteroid shows up.
Right.
The thing that I love about this scene is a little Jurassic Park reference with the liquid in the water, the
Right.
glass.
Right,
you know,
right.
It's just kind of like,
Yeah, it tilts.
'Cause you
Yeah.
know something big is coming.
Right.
But not to get all Neil deGrasse Tyson, but this whole idea that you can sort of deflect an asteroid out of orbit and send it hurtling with any accuracy at another planet on the
Right.
other side of the galaxy, stretches plausibility for me.
You got to suspend disbelief once again with science fiction.
Yeah.
And see, even if you shot the thing down with a missile or a nuke, there's all the little asteroids to contend with that are still going to hit Earth. And, and when they were doing it, I believe they were in the atmosphere at this point.
Yeah.
Which is not going to stop trajectory.
The scene in the beginning when
Yeah,
they're like,
right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And okay, but there's all these spores still, these seeds is what they were talking about on these asteroids. What happens? I mean, if there's still debris from this asteroid that you nuked out of the atmosphere. Wouldn't those spores still make it to Earth? They're spores.
Yeah.
Would they burn up? It's not explained really.
Yeah.
But once again, you kind of sometimes you don't question. You question too much, and it'll take you out of it.
I just wish they'd come up with something better. Like in the novel, the attack in Buenos Aires does happen, but they don't. He never talks about how it happens.
Really,
It's just like Buenos Aires got blown up or something.
in the film, it is revealed later what the aliens are doing, what the arachnids are doing.
Yeah. So basically, that's the 9/11 in this world, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they just wipe Buenos Aires off the face of the map.
Yeah. And I love the newsreel for that because it's like it's so like over. It's almost like they're getting a kick out of it.
Yeah,
You know, like the flames and which is what you see now with any kind of disaster, like the graphics they put together and the music.
Yeah.
Like they just it looks like they think they're filming a movie or something. They're trying to make it sexy and it's like a real actual disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also felt like it was to get people pissed at the same time because they showed the body count going up per second.
And of course they show the dead dog.
Yeah, and that's the one that got me. It's like, not the
Which is it's so that whole kind of disaster porn thing. Just like work on
gore
sentiments.
porn.
And then the Sky Marshal, right? Which I love that title.
Right.
He says, to ensure that human civilization, not insect, dominates this galaxy now and always. Now, just replace human with German and insect with Jewish.
Yeah.
And that's Nazism.
Right.
Replace human with Muslim, replace insect with infidel, you've got ISIS.
Right.
Right? I think, to me, that's really clear.
Right.
That's just, it's a commentary on that whole thing.
Right.
And then you get another thing from Fox News with the kid squashing the bugs that we talked about.
Right.
And then when the troops are all like keyed up, this one guy, the reporter, he suggests that maybe the bugs were provoked by intrusion into their zone, but of course he's shut down immediately.
Yep.
Yeah, because we can never talk about that.
Right.
Never talk about any complicity or intrusion. It's just they're the bad guys, and we just got to wipe them out.
Right. And that's what everybody's convinced by with the reels, with the newscasts.
Yeah. What's
driven into these soldiers' heads. No, we didn't do it first.
Yeah.
They did it first. You know, but if they alien race, an unthinking alien race,
Yeah.
why would they just blindly attack? Unless you came into it. It seems more territorial to me, like we described on Clendathu. You know, they weren't really coming to us so much. They were sent. Who knows if the asteroid just went loose from their asteroid belt because of whatever's up with their planet? Maybe it's decaying. Maybe the asteroids just kind of went off on their own. You know, a decaying orbit or something like this. So you don't know for sure.
Yeah.
You don't know for sure.
Making a lot of assumptions.
And well, man has a tendency to try to destroy what he doesn't understand.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, so then they have a fist fight, but I'll skip that because it was boring. And go right to the first assault. Because this is cool. This is like the version of D-Day in this universe.
Right.
And I love the CGI and puppet work in this movie.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Absolutely. I think it holds up to this day.
Yeah.
Especially for a film that was made in the 90s at the advent of CGI and cheap CGI.
So Jurassic Park was 93, 92?
I think it was around 92 maybe.
And this is like 5 years later.
Yeah.
And it just feels like a quantum leap
Yeah.
in what they did, right?
No, I agree. I agree.
Like,
There were so many movies in between that just had really bad CGI.
like fresh my memory. Which ones can you think of?
Oh, I'll have to come back to that.
Yeah, okay.
But I know there were many. Wishmaster.
Okay.
That has some terrible CGI. Which Xander is also in that film.
Okay.
The actor's name again?
Patrick Muldoon.
Patrick Muldoon.
Yeah.
He's also in Wishmaster. Once again, playing kind of a lovesick puppy guy for the main character, for the main actress in that film. But yeah, there's some bad CGI in that.
Okay.
A lot of horror movies that were coming out that were independent horror movies
Yeah.
had a lot of bad CGI. And the funny thing is that it was still expensive at that time.
Yeah. You can pay a lot for bad CGI back then.
Now you can just do it on your home computer.
Yeah.
You know, just check out any movie on sci-fi that's not a bigger budget film. Tons of bad CGI.
Yeah. So this first assault goes bad, and the fleet gets all
Bad
torn
is
up.
putting it lightly.
Exactly. And I don't know, Walt, can you think of a time when a military was so gung-ho and sure of itself that it drastically underestimated the will and abilities of the enemy?
Well, I mean, realistically or in film? I mean, there's so many Vietnam films.
Realistically.
Vietnam.
It's happened before, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what we see going on here.
Yeah.
It's a commentary on that. They're so sure of themselves, like we're just going to wipe these bugs out, and then next thing you know, yeah.
They're getting wiped out.
Exactly.
They have to retreat.
Yeah.
And our newscaster, who's on the planet, doing once again a live broadcast, kind of similar to Vietnam.
Yeah.
What actually happened there? He gets killed by an arachnid.
That's the scene we saw at the beginning of the movie, right?
Right. That was the right. Now we've flashed forward. We've kind of caught up with the mobile infantry, Rico's squad.
Yeah.
We got all the backstory, why they joined, and et cetera, et cetera. So now we're kind of caught up. It's supposed to be now we're in the present.
Yeah.
So.
In Clendathu.
Their first attack on Clendathu.
Yeah.
And I believe their only attack on Clendathu.
That we see here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then they replace the Sky Marshal with an African American woman, which is interesting.
He resigns because of the disaster.
Yeah. So there's no like minimum gender or racial discrimination. It's like, yeah, she's going to take it on.
Right.
Then I love the debate scene. Okay. Where you've got a guy with a bow tie who I think who was the conservative commentator in the 90s who had a bow tie. Really?
Oh my gosh.
Forgot his name. Something Will.
Huh.
Okay. Anyway, it's something like that.
But very conservative.
Yeah.
Representing even conservative film critics.
Was it George Will?
Was it?
Was that it?
Oh, you got me.
Yeah, I don't know. The
90s are a blur to me.
A lot of us. It reminded me of that guy. And his whole thing, he finds the idea of a bug that thinks offensive.
Frankly, I find the idea of a bug that thinks offensive.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Because if the bugs think, then they're sentient life forms.
Right.
And then maybe we shouldn't be killing them. You know, it goes. It's a slope that he does not want to go through. He just wants to believe that they're just mindless insects who
Right.
should be just wiped out, which I think we've heard in real life.
Oh,
Basically,
yeah.
where the enemy is kind of dehumanized,
Right.
you know, or
And there's so many derogatory terms that come up at wartime
exactly,
to, once again, like you just said, dehumanize the enemy.
yeah. And in our wars against Asian countries, you always hear the quote unquote Oriental does not value life like we do.
Right.
You know,
Right.
just to sort of remove any sense that this is a human being like we are.
So you can send these people out to just shoot them down.
Yeah, yeah. But then you wind up shooting yourself in the foot, because if the bugs think, then you can find out how they think, and then you can better use your resources to defeat them, right?
Right.
It's like this kind of weird conundrum thing.
And actually, once again, the woman that he's having the debate with, she presents the idea that maybe
Yeah.
we impeded on their territory. Maybe
Yeah.
we shouldn't be doing this.
Maybe we should come up with a peace treaty. Maybe we can
Right.
communicate with them. You know,
Yeah.
maybe we don't all have to die doing this thing.
Right.
But no, in this society, that's just going to be squashed down, and we're just
Yeah.
going to go for it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So then we have the Gone with the Wind casualty scene, and one thing I don't think we have talked about is Basil Polidoris and the music.
Right. Soundtrack.
Yeah, he also did Conan the Barbarian,
Really?
one of my all-time favorite scores.
Same here.
I don't
Same
know about
here.
you. He also did RoboCop with
With Verhoeven.
Verhoeven, and I really like the soundtrack in this movie. It's like this bombastic, kind of grandiose,
Military sounding.
militaristic.
Yeah.
Like it's Wagnerian. It's
Military drums.
Yeah, yeah,
War
exactly the kind of
drums.
thing you would hear if this were like a real, like, you know, full-on propaganda movie. So then there's a new tactic and a new assault, and they drop space napalm on these bugs. And I love this sequence. It's like CGI bugs, but it's a real landscape. It's model planes, but real explosions.
Right.
You know,
Right,
so the
right.
flames look real.
Yeah.
They didn't. It's like they kind of realized that if we used CGI explosions, they wouldn't look as good.
Right.
But
Especially
it's
back
all-
then. It was a
Yeah,
little more
yeah.
difficult,
Yeah.
I think, to produce flames and smoke than it is now.
Yeah.
You see that a lot more now.
Yeah.
And even then, when it's done poorly, you can tell the difference
They-
between, okay, they spent $1 more here.
They did it for the tanker bug. That was
Right,
fake
right.
flames, and you can tell.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So then they come down with the assault, and Johnny takes on the tanker bug and gets covered in tomato soup, is what it looks like to me. Then they have a party. And,
Well, wait, we
yeah.
did skip a beat where
Yeah, which
Johnny
one?
on Clondathu gets his leg obliterated by an arachnid.
Okay, yeah.
It stabs right through his leg, and he has to be laid up in the med bay.
They put him in back to fluid.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah, and got the little robot stitching his leg back together.
Yeah.
And he's thought dead in action. He's missing in action,
Yeah.
but he's not dead.
Yeah.
And you have that one remorseful scene with Carmen where they're talking about how many soldiers died on Clondathu. They have this huge
Yeah, it just
monitor.
keeps scrolling.
It
Yeah.
keeps scrolling. She finds his name and thinks that he's dead. So you have that one moment with her where she's a little remorseful about
Yeah.
what happened to him.
Did you believe it? Did you feel it?
A little bit, just for half a second. Half a second. Basically, because she just opens her mouth and goes, he's dead.
I've only seen Denise Richards in 2 movies. This one and the Bond movie, The World Is Not Enough, which came out 2 years later.
She was terrible in that. From what she she was bad.
Did you see that movie?
Yeah, I remember it.
Okay, so she's in it with Dame Judi Dench,
Dench.
Robert Carlyle,
Robert Carlyle's great.
Sophie Marceau, and they're all acting the hell out of it, right?
And she's like watching paint dry.
And she's like, "No, I'm a nuclear physicist."
I believe
No,
that.
no, really.
I don't
No,
believe
no,
that
stop
shit for a
laughing.
sec. I know, right? It's like,
But in this movie, it's like the right role
It
for
works,
her.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like Paul Verhoeven knows that she can't act worth anything,
Right.
but he's able to use her
right.
in this sort of in the kind of thing
In
that
the
he's trying to
story.
do with it. Yeah.
But yeah. And basically, once again, I think that she got as many roles as she did because she was an attractive young woman.
Yeah.
So I think that's another reason why.
Yeah.
Oh, and talking about casting, I did read that for Johnny Rico, both Mark Wahlberg and James Marsden turned down the part. to play Johnny Rico.
Really?
Yeah, the first choice was Mark Wahlberg.
Was this before or after Boogie
I
Nights?
think it was after.
Okay. So
I believe so. Or it might have been right before.
Okay, yeah.
I think it might have been right
I actually don't
before.
remember when that came out. Maybe
I think Boogie Nights was more around 97 or around 97, 98.
this is 97.
This is 97? So
Yeah.
it was...
So maybe it was
I think it was
after.
after.
Okay.
I think the role that he had done around the same time was that really bad slasher movie called Fear with Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, I never saw that.
Oh, no, don't bother.
Okay.
Don't bother. But yeah, so
Okay.
he turned down the role.
And Marsden. Well,
James Marsden played Cyclops in the X-Men films.
oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Huh. Okay.
Yeah, so he turned it down too.
So they got basically nobody because I don't think Van Dien had done anything.
I have no idea if he did.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe he was another one that was on 90210 because so many other actors seem to have
seems
come
like-
from that show.
Yeah. Seems like everybody was. Okay. Oh, you're saying something about how they hired all these attractive young actors, right?
Yeah.
So how do you explain Jack Busey?
Well, you had to dumb it down
The
somewhere.
teeth.
You're
It's
right.
those teeth. You know,
Well, he's
honestly,
basically sidekick. That's why. And the sidekick has to be a goofy guy and
there-
goofy looking.
There are some pictures of him where you can tell he's a handsome man,
Yeah.
but his mouth is closed.
Right.
But with those teeth,
He's got those
like,
Busey teeth.
yeah, like,
And he also comes across like he's probably just as crazy as his dad, as Gary.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love Gary Busey in some movies.
Riding
but
that motorcycle out the helmet, and okay. So then they have a party because this assault succeeds, and then Busey takes out a space fiddle, and
right?
and he plays Dixie of all tunes.
I know, yeah.
Like what?
I never got that he was from the South, or, they never
Yeah.
really established
Yeah,
that.
and everybody has a hoedown.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Like, because that's a thing that happens now
In the future, yeah.
Okay.
A neon fiddle.
I'm not sure how to read that, so I won't even try.
Right.
Basically. And then Johnny gets on with Dizzy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he actually talks to Michael Ironside's character,
Yeah.
Sarge,
Yeah.
where when he was in school, he had asked him for some advice.
Yeah.
And he said, go out into the world. At the prom, he asked him for some advice. And he said, well, go out into the world and figure it out for yourself. So he sees that Dizzy is still coming on to him, still wants him. Mm-hmm. And he turns her down. He says, do I have to pull rank? Because she wants to dance with him.
Don't you hate it when the hot women come on to you?
I know, right? Oh, God, man, again, brushing
It's so unappealing.
constantly. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got two. This is ridiculous with this guy in this movie. So he shoots her down. Then Michael Ironside's character Sarge comes over and says, "You once asked me for some advice.
Yeah.
Here's some advice now. Never turn down a sure thing."
Yeah.
And so it's almost like he had to be convinced, because maybe he's still hung up on Carmen. He's not seeing that Dizzy's really into him. So I guess this kind of closes the romantic portion of...
You really understand all this romantic stuff, don't you? Like, I didn't even think any of this through.
Yeah, so, I'm a romantic at
I
heart.
didn't know you were that into this whole plot. I mean, you're like explaining everything.
So then, they get it on, and I think there's a reason for that, which is explained later, shown later in the film.
So is Michael Ironside a surrogate father here? Because, of course, he's said goodbye to his real father.
Right, because
Yeah.
his father was killed in the Buenos Aires attack,
Yeah, yeah.
where he was going to come home. Mm-hmm. So
Oh,
he's
right,
kind of
'cause-
looking at him
Yeah,
like...
that's right. He was on his way home.
Yeah, he's looking at Sarge as kind of a surrogate father, kind of. Mm-hmm. But I think more for he sees who he is now, where he didn't understand him completely when he was being taught by him in school, when he was an instructor in school.
Right.
He's seen this other side of the man now. Mm-hmm. So of course he's asking him for some kind of worldly advice, or how to go about living in this military scenario now.
So you've got a situation where a high school teacher is inculcating students with this militaristic philosophy,
Almost
and then,
recruiting undercover.
yeah, it's like the whole society is set up for this one thing.
Yep. Go into the military.
Yeah. To
Get your legs shot off.
To which Paul Verhoeven would reply, "It's all fascist."
Yeah, it's fascist.
Yeah. And then we kind of get this running gag where Johnny keeps getting promoted because a guy above him dies.
Yeah, that's the only way he's getting promoted.
Which is which kind of says something, right? It's not
Yeah.
like, I mean, he does do something awesome when he takes out the tanker bug. He earned
Yeah,
that one, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah.
It throws a thermal grenade in its back and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, a good mix of like practical effects because
Yeah.
he's like actually on this sort of rigged up tanker bug, but
Yeah.
then long shots it's all CGI.
Right.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
And the thing spits fire.
Yeah,
It's like a giant, like you said, tank beetle thing
how awesome
that
is that?
spits fire.
Yeah. All right, so then they do another assault on Planet P,
Planet P.
right? And then that's when they find this base that's been messed up.
These are the Mormons that tried to settle there,
I-
or is it
I thought- I think
another
this is
military? It's a military
they're
base.
military dead, right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was
Oh,
a
right, because
military
you get
outpost.
the corporal that's freaking out, right?
Yeah, I think it was a general.
General, right?
Yeah, because he's been hiding in the locker.
and losing his
while the
mind, losing his shit.
brain bug sucked his brains out.
We get to see another type of creature.
Yeah. And Michael Ironside dies.
Yeah.
So he loses his surrogate father there. Dizzy ends up dying pretty soon after, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And there's a scene previously, before the tanker bug scene, where this giant mosquito type creature takes out a point
the
man.
flying ones.
Yeah. Takes out a communications officer.
Yeah.
And as he's being attacked by this giant mosquito, being stabbed with the giant stinger, Michael Ironside's character shoots his own soldier to save him from being devoured by this bug.
Yeah.
And he tells his troops, I would expect you to do the same for me.
Yeah.
And then when he's dying, being pulled underground by another bug, he turns to Rico and says, you know what to do.
Yeah.
And Rico hesitates for half a second, but he does shoot him. Where you can see that training just took over. Now, you're saying surrogate father. He shows emotion for literally half a second before he says, okay,
Yeah.
boom, boom,
Right.
you're done.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be squad leader or something, or, I'm going to be,
Because that's
Sarge.
how it's like the arc is he's becoming this soldier, just this thing in the whole military machine.
right.
Like when you look at it like that, it's kind of a tragedy.
Yeah.
The whole situation. I mean, his
And they don't
girlfriend died right now, and
Right,
yeah.
right. And they don't look back.
No.
You get maybe one nod later where they rename the Roughnecks to Rico's Roughnecks.
Yeah.
And he's more than happy with that,
Yeah. So
Because, that's Michael Ironside's character's name, Rorschach,
right, okay. So why does Dizzy get the space funeral and not Michael Ironside?
Yeah, right?
Right.
Right?
They're doing
Oh,
the
well,
Spock
because he
thing
was
with her.
devoured. He was pulled on
Oh,
the
yeah,
ground.
okay, of
by,
course, yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
body.
Okay.
He's
it's all-
gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they had her on the boat
Yeah.
to get off the planet, to get off P.
There must be a lot of those canisters being shot into space.
Floating all
It's-
around, I
yeah,
know.
you're going to run into one if you're orbiting the planet.
Space graveyard.
Yeah. So Carmen and Messy Hair Xander save them, right?
Gel boy.
Yeah. They pick him up, take him back. So there's this kind of really awkward reunion. And that's when Neil Patrick Harris shows up in the Gestapo outfit, right?
Yeah. I mean, head to toe.
And then you find out how he is, where his mind is at now.
Yeah.
He's like, he thinks about the numbers.
Yeah.
Like he kind of thinks like an insect.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like it's all about the numbers. I'll sacrifice all you people. To do this
That's
thing.
why we send you. Yeah. He says it pretty much.
Yep.
To them. I got to send people like you to your deaths every day, is what he tells his friends that
Exactly.
he grew up with in high school.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you get and they go down and things happen pretty quickly because the fleet gets taken out, the ship gets chopped in half.
Because of the blue light that is being sent up by these other creatures
By
that
the other-
spit light, like basically out of their butts.
Yeah.
It's like these weird blue laser lights. And they thought it was random light, like some sort of tracer thing that they were doing
Mm-hmm.
to communicate. But it turns out that it's basically like a giant laser.
They're like mess you up kind
Yeah.
of bolts. Yeah.
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 They take out a whole battleship.
And I love when the ship splits in half.
Yeah,
It
it's
looks
great.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those bodies floating around.
Yeah, oh,
Even
yeah.
They hit one when they're escaping.
Right, it's a boom in the shuttle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They get down to the planet, and Johnny's down there, and then they go find her and the brain bug and all that kind of
The
stuff.
giant
and
brain bug, yeah.
The giant brain bug, yeah.
It's just like a giant slug
Yeah.
type
That
bug
was, yeah.
with, I don't know, like 40 eyes in its face and a
Yeah.
giant stinger that would come out of its mouth area
Yeah.
covered in goop.
Ugh, yeah.
And it uses this giant stinger thing to pierce the skull of a human and suck its brains out to get its knowledge.
Yeah.
Gonna eat your brain and gain all your knowledge.
Is that a real song word?
It's a little kid thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then basically we kind of wind up, right? Because then they take care of that brain bug and its
They managed to capture it.
They get back up. Meanwhile, the other guy, who's now private, he's captured.
The drill sergeant.
Yeah, he's captured a brain bug. We never see that happen.
Right.
Like,
It's all off camera.
And Neil Patrick Harris uses the Force to like probe his brain or
Right.
whatever, and then
It does a mind meld.
yeah, and then it's all like wound up.
Well, one of the great lines that he delivers there when they drag the bug out and the netting and the whole thing.
Yeah.
They kill the nest with all the warrior arachnids. Clancy Brown's character captures the brain bug, like Max just said. We don't see that on camera.
Yeah.
But you see all the troopers pulling it out. Neil Patrick Harris walks over to it and touches it, and he's reading its mind, like you said, doing a mind meld, using the Force, and he screams to the troops that when he knows what it's thinking, that it's afraid.
Yeah.
It's afraid, and they all scream and yell and
shit,
cheer.
it's afraid.
You know,
You've
right.
got the thing surrounded.
Yeah, and
Like,
you
who
see
wouldn't
it
be-
kind of
who wouldn't be
cower.
afraid? Yeah.
They
Yeah.
do that cool little effect
Like-
where it cowers.
Like I can tell it's afraid.
Yeah, right.
You know? And yeah.
Yeah, so
Like, ooh, wow, you're so psychic. The brain bug will go on a long journey, you know. And then that's pretty much well. Then we see the final kind of broadcast,
propaganda
final
film, yeah.
and they're still fighting,
and they're in it now.
yeah,
Rico
and it just looks like it's going to be an endless war,
yeah,
like just a self-perpetuating machine,
yeah,
which is it's kind of bleak.
yeah.
Like-
And now you got Rico spouting Sarge's lines. You know,
Yeah.
Do you apes want to live forever? You know, and now he's just become like you said.
Yeah.
It's like one guy gets killed,
Yeah,
another steps right into his place.
and they're all career now.
Yeah,
They're just going to be doing this the rest of their lives, probably, however long that's going to be.
Rico and Jake Busey's character. What was his name again? I'm blanking out.
Jake Busey, Ace.
Ace.
Yeah.
Right. So, where they got a new squad, and he says, "Who are all these kids?" And they're maybe in their 20s,
Yeah.
and they're calling the new recruits kids. So, it's like, what's your lifespan in this military if you can make it?
And it looks like they deliberately cast like teenagers.
Yeah, they look like
for that
little
shot.
kids.
Yeah.
Well, you do have that one scene in another propaganda film moment in the film where they do have a little kid saying, and I'm doing my part too, and he's got the rifle and
yeah,
everything.
no, it's all,
And they all laugh, yeah.
Ugh.
But the kid must be like 8 years old at
Yeah.
best.
It's so creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap this up. Walt, what is your final verdict on this movie? What are your thoughts?
I like it. I think it's a great science fiction war film, alien invasion type film. And I was pleasantly surprised when I eventually did see it. I didn't see it when it was released in theaters.
Yeah.
I did see it on home video. And I thought it was
What, you mean like a VHS tape?
Yeah, VHS tape. Yeah,
Okay.
VHS tape. You know, back before DVDs, which nobody wants anymore either. So I like it. I think it's one of the better cult movies, maybe even science fiction movies from the 90s, because there weren't so many.
Yeah.
In the 90s, there was a real drought when it came to science fiction films across the board. I mean, you had Jurassic Park, you had certain movies, but not a whole lot of them.
Now, why do you call it a cult film?
Well, personally, because when it came out, it wasn't a success. It saw new life on video
Yeah.
and word of mouth. It did moderate, I think, at best at the box office. And it didn't have a long run. I think it was after where it took on another life.
Do you have a sense why that might happen?
I think it wasn't billed properly, like we had talked about earlier. I remember seeing commercials for it and having no interest.
Yeah.
Having no interest in the film.
Yeah.
I think it was just poorly marketed.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people who saw it, they were expecting an action movie, but they thought that the acting was just bad.
Yeah.
Like they thought all these things that I think, and I think Paul Verhoeven
Are almost purposeful.
these things are purposeful, and they demand a certain reading of it. They just saw it as this is just shitty,
Right.
stupid. But then the question is, who is this made for?
Right.
Like, I mean,
right.
it may have been made just for me because
Right.
I mean,
I know what you mean, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or like us, because
Right.
we're people who love action stuff. We love like good sci-fi CGI, like stuff that's done right. But we also like to think about a movie,
Of course.
and we also like a movie that presents interesting ideas.
Right.
So I think it has, like you said, it's gained a new lease on life in that kind of territory. Like there's been reevaluations. There's actually a really interesting article in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
You can Google it online. Just sort of looking back at it and like, well, this is what he was trying to do. But
Right.
but then when you look at the reviews at the time,
Yeah.
it's like, and I'm talking about smart reviewers who have seen the movies that Verhoeven references, who didn't get it. They're like, this is a fascist movie.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I don't know where they got that. I mean,
Right,
I can see
right.
superficially. Sometimes I wonder if movie reviewers are really looking that closely at a movie. Because if you're watching 20 movies a week, how can you really,
Right.
honestly, like, you know?
And they're human too. That you might not have
Exactly.
been in the mood for it when you saw it. You know, there are movies
Yeah.
that I've seen the same way.
Yeah.
That I've watched and gone, I didn't feel it. I'll watch it again.
Yeah.
Later on down the road and go, I don't know how I missed it the first time.
But
now I dig it.
But your job is not to be objective and really try to,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right,
Like, this
right.
is their job.
Right. I got to come up with this article tonight.
Yeah. And to understand what the director's trying to do.
Right.
And if you're a movie critic and you can't figure that out, like, what,
You don't get the satire.
yeah,
maybe,
like,
or-
what hope do the rest of us have?
Right.
But I think it's a great movie.
Yeah,
Quite-
I enjoy it.
Honestly, like I think
enjoy it.
I when I say this, I'm not putting it in the same echelon in terms of quality as this movie, but in the same in the sense of technique and what someone is trying to achieve. But it reminds me of Doctor Strangelove,
Okay. Yeah. No. All right.
which again,
I see that.
I mean, it was a
see
militaristic
that.
movie,
Yeah.
right? Like
No,
you got all the stuff going on, war with the Soviet Union, but it was all tongue in cheek and it was all a bleak, black satire, right?
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just kind of just amped up a little bit.
Right.
You know, strange love, his whole like arm that won't sit down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's kind of what he was going for with this movie.
Right.
And I think he pulls it off.
I could see that analogy. Absolutely.
Like every time I see this movie, I get more out of it.
Yeah.
Like more, and I reflect more upon not only militarism in this country, but like throughout history.
Throughout
Like,
history.
I think he was looking at it all. I don't think he was specifically trying to critique, you know, American politics or anything. I think he was looking at the larger sort of
Overall.
idea of why we as human beings go to war, the things that keep us at war, like
Right.
why do we devote ourselves to this incredibly destructive enterprise?
And how can you convince young people to sign up? And
Yeah. How do you? Yeah, they've got their lives ahead of them. How do you convince them to do this thing that could end up maiming or killing them?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
I was
brilliant.
like I said, I had friends that were in the military, and when I was a kid, they signed up basically when they were last year of high school.
Yeah.
And I went to the recruitment office, and that was it. I said, nope,
Well, what happened?
no way.
What happened?
I went with a couple of my friends because they were interested, and I didn't think that they were really going to sign up.
Yeah.
But when they did, I said, no, I didn't take it seriously. I'm not, no, I
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah. Okay.
I cannot do it.
Yeah.
So there are people who can, and people who can't. So me watching a film like this and any other war movie, I'm from the exact opposite of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could never do that. I mean, if you had no choice,
Yeah.
okay,
And if you're
like the draft, but years and years ago.
yeah, or if your country is being invaded,
Then yeah, you
hell
have to
yeah,
fight.
of course. Yeah.
But in this, it's not so much that. There's still the question:
Yeah.
who started it,
Exactly.
and why did it start?
Yeah.
Is it once again man saying, "Well, you know what? There's these things out there. We're not sure about them. Let's go over there and kill it, so that way it's not a threat to us." Instead of saying, "Let's go find out about it first.
Yeah.
They just kind of go in guns blazing.
They set up like this quarantine zone, right?
Right.
In the beginning, it's almost like, okay, the bugs are in this area. We kind of cordon it off, but then it's the Mormon extremists who kind of go in and violate that truce. Is that kind of how you gather it?
I believe so. Yeah.
And then the bugs fight back, and of course,
Right.
then it's all out war.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really dig the movie. I also think it came out at a time where, around that time in the 90s, it was very PC, very politically correct time, even
Okay.
with music and film. So I think that could have been another detriment to it upon release,
Okay.
that some people just could not see what he was going for.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a marvelous film, and I think it's a good dystopian film
Absolutely.
because the future sucks.
Once again, the future sucks.
In this movie. Yeah.
So what's the suckage on this one?
Man, it sucks pretty badly. Well, Yeah, I think
Maybe unless you become a citizen and you get out, then maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah, well, if you survive long
If
enough,
you survive
that's the
with
thing, yeah.
you know, in one piece.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But then you get robot arms.
Yeah. A little bit of this, a
I know
little bit of that.
it looks great on paper, but you actually get a robot arm and that thing goes out of control.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think our verdict on this is I think it's a solid movie.
Solid movie. Yeah. And the future, once again, the suck factor in this is pretty high.
Yeah.
Pretty
okay.
high.
All right. It's time now on the podcast. We got to decide where our next movie is going to be. So we're going to flip a coin. We're going to actually flip a coin this time. You got a coin handy?
Yep. Coin in hand.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep. Tails.
Heads.
All right. You pick.
Oh, so I'm permanently heads and you're permanently tails. I got to pick last time.
The toss.
Oof. What would I decide?
Just for the viewers, the listeners at home, Walt has like a wall of DVDs
that I'm staring at.
He's actually looking up at them right now.
Trying to figure out.
He has a huge library of DVDs. So he's got inspiration up there. You didn't think about this beforehand?
No, I didn't.
You knew you could have won the toss. All right, you got something, Walt?
I have decided.
Okay, tell us.
It's going to be the Road Warrior.
The Road Warrior.
The Road Warrior. I'm going to skip Mad Max and go right to the Road Warrior.
Okay, wow. That's going to be a while.
That's going to be a long podcast.
Yeah. Both of us have a lot to say about the road. Okay, all right.
Yes.
It is Mad Max 2, also known as The Road Warrior. Next time on the Future Sucks Dystopian Film Podcast. I am Max.
I'm Walt. We are Useless Info Inc. Thanks for checking us out. Leave comments. Hit us up. Let us know you're out there. Be good. Enjoy the future.
Future Sucks. Bye.